Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Leading Innovation at Work, the Future of Business. I'm your host, Lorri Rollinson, and in today's episode, I'm really looking forward to learning from Nikki Greenberg. She's the founder of Women in Proptech, but Nikki is also a popular speaker on global innovation. She's a futurist, and all of this overlaid in real estate development. So an amazing combination of capabilities for our audience. How are you today, Nikki?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm absolutely delighted to be joining you, and thank you so much for your kind introduction, Lorri.
Oh, it's really our pleasure. Hey, Nikki, just before we get started with your, thanks for preparing a short presentation for us today. I'd love to hear, I'm always so curious to hear about how great leaders and great thought leaders get into their role, because there's often not a playbook to follow, right? I'd love to hear the straight line or the curvy line that you took in your career path to get to where you're at and why you're so passionate about PropTech.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think if you talk about curvy line, it's probably more of a squiggly line, a little bit of but I think that's the thing, there's so many things happening in the real estate sector. I don't think it all needs to be a linear line. And this is the interesting thing about PropTech, is that there's not a single person in the world that woke up, as a child going, oh, I want to be in PropTech, because it didn't even exist as an industry. So I think there's a golden opportunity now for people that, like myself and like others in the space, are interested in taking a non-linear path in their careers. Because the thing about PropTech especially is that it's a hybrid industry. There is, it's made up of real estate, it's made up of capital, it's made up of technology, it's made up of people from miscellaneous sides. So I think when I describe PropTech, I always say that it's about people that are interested in the future of the built environment. And that's essentially your qualification, because there's so much to add into the conversation. So for me personally, I come from the bricks and mortar side of the business. I'm an architect by trade, studied in Australia, worked in it for a number of years. Worked on different types of projects, from absolutely beautiful luxury residences at Bondi Beach overlooking the water, to big mega malls in China, to mixed-use master plan communities, running the gamut of it. And what, when I finished business school, which I also studied in Australia, I then knew that I wanted to be in real estate development, but I wasn't sure in what capacity. I knew that I loved the area, I loved people, I loved, really influencing the shape of the built environment for years to come. And, how we can, when we create something, it's something that can be quite impactful for the people that get to use it, and get to love it. So I actually then went to go work for one of my real estate developer clients. And, again, working on projects that I worked on as an architect, but then seeing them come to life, literally looking over the construction site and seeing bulldozers moving dirt around. And then going all the way through to when people start moving in and falling in love with their apartments, or loving the shopping center that they find to be transformative. So, the thing is that what we do as real estate professionals impacts on people in a real way and has a lasting legacy. So this is something that I love. Then the transformation, or the move over to PropTech, came when I came over to New York. And, when I wanted to come to New York, it's one of the most exciting cities in the world. And there's so much to be inspired by. There are so many smart people doing amazing things. And what I was looking for is something that was really going to be a next step, something that was going to be, big, interesting, a reason to leave my wonderful life behind in Australia. And that's when I was exposed to PropTech. And what I love about it is that it's a group of people that are thinking about the future of the real estate industry and how can we do things in a different way and in a better way. I just love the personalities. I always have the most engaging conversations with people in the sector, because we're very like-minded. What can we do that's different? What can we do that's purposeful, that's interesting? How can we create something new? How can we add value into our developments? How can we break the mold? So I absolutely fell in love with it. And when I was looking to become more involved in the PropTech sector, that's when I was looking for more like-minded people. We have really wonderful conferences or networking events here and there in New York. We're very fortunate in that way. But I was like, where's that group? Where's that community that gets together and supports each other, helps with, professional development, opportunities, etc. And I just couldn't find it. So I called up a lot of people, connected with a lot of people on LinkedIn. I'm like, where's this community? And you have to excuse me, I have a call coming through. And I was wondering where this community was. And what I realized is that there was an opportunity to create one. So, that's really been the genesis. I know it's a little bit long-winded, but I think that for everybody getting into PropTech, you can come at it from different directions. And there's a huge, huge, huge opportunity right now, if you're quite entrepreneurial, to be one of the first in this space to actually lead the discussion, because it's a marketplace where we're all trying to meet each other and trying to create things in different ways. So if anyone's thinking about it or wondering what it is, most of us don't know. I can't even say we're figuring it out, but we're creating it.
Oh, Nikki, I just love your passion. And I'm just smiling. I couldn't help but smile at your squiggly career path. But, I think it is the essential building blocks to what you need right now. And, you're a living example of how different career paths are crossing over and informing each other, right? Especially technology. So I think it's amazing that you've crossed over and you're blending things together, which I think we're going to see more and more of. I also love that you've been able to collect this amazing tribe and group of people with common interests, and I can hear your passion and your inspired purpose behind that. And I thank you for being such a great ambassador of PropTech and rallying people around it, educating people. And that's what I was hoping you could do today, is just help inform people. When I started to issue this conference, I had people saying, Lorri, what's PropTech? What's CreTech? And, I think as we educate people, and once you share with them what it is, they're like, wow, that's amazing. And it's like, you're right, it is amazing. It's a great topic. So I'd love it if you could maybe just share a little bit more about your perspective on PropTech and specifically women in PropTech, and a little bit of fun facts and information, and then how people could get more information about your organization.
Absolutely. And, I get asked this question quite a lot. The question is, what is PropTech? And, sometimes I'm surprised by it, because often it will be people that are in the real estate industry, or sometimes it will be people that are in smart cities. And what surprises me a little bit is that these are people that are, very educated. They know their industry really well, but they're not familiar with this term or the opportunities. So I think within PropTech, sometimes we forget that we're in a little bit of a bubble, that it is a new term for a lot of people. And even in terms of the definition of PropTech, it's still finding its feet. And there's some exclusions to what's considered a PropTech, not a PropTech. There's certain real estate companies that want to be considered a PropTech. There's some PropTech companies that are like, we don't want to be called a PropTech. So it's a little bit of a loose definition. But really, the way that I like to describe PropTech is essentially that there's two sides to it almost. I've coined the term prop tool. So, these are the tools that we use, the technologies that we use to be more effective. So that might be in terms of our work processes. Instead of using Excel, which we all love, present company included, I use different versions of Excel, be it, numbers on my Mac, Excel itself, or, my Google Sheet. So I'm a huge Excel user, but there are technologies that are coming in that are more efficient than our Excel, because we can't just keep doing everything there. We live in 2019, almost 2020, and the future when people start listening to this. So there are prop tools that help with our way of doing business in the real estate sector, from operations to the ways that we design, build, and manage, through to the construction process. So these are the tools that we use. These tools are not going to be replacing humans, but they do make us more efficient and more effective and more profitable ultimately. And then the other side of the definition is essentially what's coined, tech-enabled. And what tech-enabled is any type of real estate that then uses that technology. So, for example, you might have a tech-enabled workspace. Now, that is a workspace that then uses technology to be more effective. So that technology might be apps for booking rooms or for notifying people of deliveries or so on and so forth. So they're quite different. One's the tools, the other's the real estate that uses the technology, but they're both part of PropTech itself. As I said, it's quite a fluid definition, but that's the way that I like to view it and define it. So I will tell you a little bit about women in PropTech, and I do have some slides I can pull up. So thank you very much, Lorri, for providing me this opportunity to talk about the organization. And then maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion around it. So essentially, and just so you know, Lorri, I can't actually see the slides at the moment, so I'm going in blind here, but I'll trust that we're kind of synced up because the headings are quite descriptive. So, basically, what Women in PropTech is about inspiring the success of next generation female leaders interested in the future of the built environment. So what that means is that we are people that are looking at the future of real estate. And we have currently locations in New York, which is our headquarters, in Toronto, which is where, the lovely city that Lorri gets to call home, and London. And our aspiration is to have chapters all across the world. As an organization, we feel that we have strength in being cross geography because with technology, we can communicate across the globe, and also the types of technologies that's relevant in one market can also be relevant in other markets. So that's something that's important to us. And really, the reason that we exist is because even though there's a lot of women in the US or across the globe, unfortunately, we're rather underrepresented in the industry. And that's just a hangover effect that's coming in from, very male-dominated, traditionally male-dominated industries such as finance, real estate, and technology. But in creating a new industry of PropTech, we do want to see the participation and advancement of women in the industry, getting it right from the beginning. Rather than trying to catch up down the line, we have an opportunity now to correct the gender balance. So in terms of the way that our organization is purposeful and in terms of what we do, we have 4 pillars that we operate around. And why this is important is because, as you know, there are some really great organizations that are out there, but we wanted to find where our gaps were and think about how we can do something that is really quite meaningful. So the first piece is around connections, because as you know, you get your next job, your next opportunity, your market intelligence around the people that you know. We can't underestimate the importance and impact of connections. And just so you know, all of these photos coming up, these are all from our events. And as Lorri pointed out earlier, if you kind of manually zoom into your screen, go a little bit closer, you'll probably find a few people that you know. So we have a couple of photos from New York and Toronto over here. So the next pillar for us is around showcasing women. And these are some of the speakers that we've had at past events. Now, why it's important to showcase women is that firstly, we need to put a female face to the industry so that it's realized that it is a place for us, and to serve as role models, because we can't be what we can't see. So the third pillar for us is around education. And this, I believe, is the most important way that we can make a difference in the PropTech industry globally. And what we have happening is that the real estate industry is changing significantly. And we want to make sure that everybody that's involved is aware of the technologies that are coming and are comfortable talking about PropTech in a educated and meaningful way. I like to use this analogy that, when I was in architecture school, we studied engineering. And it's not so that we could become engineers, but it's so that when we did speak to our engineers, we could be more effective communicators because we understand their language and their thought process. And in that way, we could be more effective. So education is a very important part of what we do. And here you can see a couple of photos from a panel event that we ran earlier in the year around cybersecurity. Then down the bottom, a summit that we held a couple of weeks ago around the theme of sustainability. And the fourth pillar of the four is around inspiration, because we do want to encourage more women into the industry, and we do want to encourage the next generation to consider it as a career path, because for those of us that are in it, it is so incredibly exciting that we do want to get the word out by working with universities, and other organizations to inspire more people into the industry.
Well, that's great. Now, that's a really great mandate, and I think you've really covered the principles so well. So connecting professionals together, showcasing great women, great thought leaders that just happen to be women, educating on what is PropTech, how it's applied, and is inspiring, creating inspiring networking events as well. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your upcoming conferences that you have, Nikki?
Yeah, no, thank you. So we're super excited for the next summit that we have coming up. So please save the date, and especially Lorri, I hope you'll join us. Check your calendar now. I know you get very busy with all your many speaking engagements. So the next summit we have coming up is on the 12th of February, hosted in New York, which will be at 60 Madison, which is hosted by an hotel. And that's around the tech-enabled brokerage. So what we try to do with our summits is that they're half-day events around one theme. And we have thought leaders and professionals that really know the theme inside out, but it's attacked from different angles because, for example, to understand the tech-enabled brokerage, if we just have one panel, we're not doing it justice. We need to think about what are the implications for brokers, for tenants, residential, commercial. What does data mean? What's the impact of Bitcoin on the whole discussion? So, as I said, this education piece is super important to us because this is an opportunity to spend half a day learning about the issues from a myriad of directions, so that by the end of the day, you've not only met some absolutely brilliant people, but you've really gotten to know a lot of information around one topic that can help you to be more effective in your career.
I love the format. And Nikki, I love the topic for that conference because I don't think the industry is talking enough about tech-enabled brokerage. And I think that of all of the PropTech, CreTech, ConTech, that's out there, that is probably one of the most disruptive that's out there. And disruptive, I mean, not just innovative, because so many of the traditional real estate organizations are built on brokerage and those margins. And it's just going to it's really ripe for disruption and a very different way of doing it. And I think that a lot of people might be just ostriching on this topic. So I really encourage, if you're going to be working for, if you've got more than 5 to 10 years left in your career, you really should attend this conference or start to make yourself aware of tech-enabled brokerage offerings that are out there. So thank you. That's a great one that I don't see a lot of people talking about. I'd love to hear, you get exposure to such a wide perspective of technology. I'd love to hear, you hear about some of the things you hear about sound so futuristic and intangible and out there, but there's some that are really at our doorstep that I think we're going to see a lot more in the next, let's say, less than 3 years. What were some of the technologies that you think are going to be big game changers in I'm going to say less than 3 years, but it could be less than 5, just more of the immediate future, I'll say.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot that's happening at the moment, but something that I think is incredibly topical at the moment is around that sustainability piece. And what's happening is happening around the world, but also it's a large conversation now in the US, which, thank you, finally, but let's see the form that it takes. Buildings are being told that they need to reduce their carbon footprints because they're big, big, big polluters. So what's happening is that there's mandates from government to reduce carbon emissions, which means that real estate developers and owners have to kind of listen up and go, okay, well, now there's that incentive, and you can have the carrot and the stick. Now there's that stick, you have to do it. So what is happening is, for a lot of these mandates, some of them apply to new buildings, some of them apply to existing buildings. I think it's particularly interesting when we need to reduce the energy consumption of existing buildings, because that's hard to crack. So I think any solution that relates to reducing carbon in existing buildings is something that we're going to see a lot more of across residential, commercial, larger projects. There's a lot that's happening already in being able to monitor and adjust the energy consumption, by tracking something, where the wastage is. I think there's going to be a lot happening around not just efficiencies in the, when you turn something on, when you turn something off, but I think there's going to be, it's going to be a larger part of the value of a space that's placed around it. So I say watch that space. The sustainability space is super interesting.
Well, I love that answer, because I don't feel we're making progress against sustainability fast enough. And I think, to your point, in real estate, we have a responsibility to play a leadership role. Like, if you're a leader in real estate, we really need to make progress faster. I love what you're saying. And I do hear the dichotomy of building new, which is easier because you can include a lot of these amazing technologies in the design spec of a new build. And then I see organizations that are trying to retrofit their buildings struggling with it a little bit more. But one of the things we do is tie in those retrofits into the capital planning process. So every time you touch a building, it's a chance to make it smarter. So that's the one piece of advice I would suggest, just to tie in, to advocate, is make sure that your smart building upgrade plan is tied into your capital planning process, so that you only have to touch it once, and it just makes your business case around the investment that's necessary much more buoyant, right? So they really work in concert together.
Great advice.
Great. Now, one of the things I always love asking speakers, I'm a super book nerd, and I know many of my audience members are. My book list or recommended reading list is one of my more popular areas on the website. Do you have any books that you would like to recommend, that either around this topic or something that's really influenced you in business? I'd love to hear your thoughts about any book recommendations you might have for the audience.
Absolutely, and I love this question too. So I think you mentioned in my introduction that I'm also a futurist. So I'm going to be recommending a future book that is coming out. So for those of you who are familiar with Dror Poleg, he runs a consultancy called Rethinking RE. So here's a book coming out. It's called, excuse me, looking over the shoulder here because I want to get the title right. It's called Rethinking Real Estate, a Roadmap to Technology's Impact on the World's Largest Asset Class by Dror Poleg. So that's Poleg. And that's available for pre-order on Amazon. Now, why I recommend this book is that I know Dror rather well. We co-chair New York's ULI Real Estate Technology Council. So we've gotten to know each other very well over the past few months. He's really an academic in this space that's not affiliated with universities. So he's coming at it from a very studied space. And I think this is going to become recommended reading and part of every single real estate course's curriculum in a real way.
That's fantastic. And I always love it when I get a book recommendation of something I haven't heard or read before. So that's great. And you know what I think I'll do, Nikki, is I'll buy some copies of the book when it's out. And I'll give you a bit of a sneak peek. I'm going to be giving that away to people on the newsletter list. So there'll be prizes for participants in the future. So I'm happy to support, and it's a great topic, especially, somebody who is approaching it from such a deep academic perspective in an applied environment. I'm very interested to read the book. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got, Nikki. Is there any other parting comments that you want to share with the audience? And just don't forget to remind them how to follow you on social media as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, just parting comments, please do follow us on social media. Women in PropTech. You'll find us on Twitter, particularly on LinkedIn. We do have a closed LinkedIn group. So if you search for us, we'll welcome you into the group. Sign up to our newsletter. Our website is www.womeninproptech.co. You can find out more about us there. You can find out more about membership, which is available in the US. Please sign up to come to our different events. There's amazing networking, the most incredible speakers you'll hear, and there's definitely something to be learned. I think, the one major closing comment I will make, and I just can't emphasize this enough, PropTech is new to everybody. So don't feel that because you're of a certain age or generation, or you're not tech savvy, or you're not that interested, that it's not something for you. This is where the whole industry is going. This is where the whole world is going. So you don't need to know how to code. You don't need to know all the crazy technical stuff. If you can use an iPhone, if you know how to turn on the television, this is what our building's going to be like. That's going to be the same kind of control around it. So, for our events, we're very conscious to make sure that we explain out a lot of the terminology. We want people attending to have a sense of what's coming, learning about it, connecting with great people. We start at the basics, and then we kind of ramp it up and up and up and up, so that you can learn from a lot of professionals. So don't feel like you're late to it. If you get in now and you start reading about things bit by bit, it will all start to take shape. But it's so exciting. You'll love it, and there's great thought leaders in the space that you can follow, and I would encourage you to do so. Final plug. I think what Lorri's doing here is absolutely brilliant. I follow her on LinkedIn. I love what she has to say. I love her passion in the space, and her way of connecting people in a very thoughtful way. So congratulations on launching this initiative, Lorri. I think it's absolutely wonderful.
Oh, and my thanks to you as well. Thank you for your gracious words, but I thank you so much for the great service that you do for our industry. I thank you for your leadership to help carry us into the future. I think more than ever, we need to be avid learners, and thank you for providing such a thoughtful forum. And I also really thank you for providing such a great venue for thought leaders that just happen to be women. I've been at some conferences in the past and noticed that there's been a disproportion of participation. And I think what you're doing is really going to help develop future leaders and more inclusive participation. So thank you on many levels of the great service you do for our industry. We'll show and share the different links to some of the references that you've mentioned. Happy to share them openly and freely. Thank you so much, Nikki Greenberg. Great to have you join us, and we'll see you on the other side.
Cool. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.